All right, there's been a lot of drama in the chess world lately, and I don't really want to weigh in on that drama because I don't think there's a whole lot to be gained for adult improvers as far as trying to weigh in on whether Hans cheated and if so, how much, and yada yada yada. Personally, I don't really care, but I do think that one thing that is would be hard to argue is that Hans be hard to argue that Hans is not one of the goats of chess improvement on a high end. He's one of the greatest of all time as far as the how fast he improved at a high end, and I think Michael de La Maza is definitely one of the goats of adult chess improvement. And when I was thinking about when I got kind of found out about all the Hans Niemann stuff, it made me think of Michael de La Maza and revisit his improvement and his book that he wrote on rapid chess improvement. And what I wanted to do is explore this in some videos to see if there's anything us adult and chess improvers can take from the improvement of Hans and Michael de La Maza. And so in this video, mainly what I wanted to do is show the similarities between Hans and Michael. And then in upcoming videos, I'm going to try to dig into it and see if there's stuff that we can use to improve our chess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to list some of the similarities between Hans and Michael, and then I'm going to go through each one individually. So similarities between Hans and Michael, and I should mention Michael de La Maza wrote a book called Rapid Chess Improvement. It came out in 2002, and I'll put a link to it in the show description. But basically, he gained several hundred rating points in 2 years, and I'm going to discuss that in detail in an upcoming video and the methods that he used. And he wrote a book about the methods that he used to see such rapid rating increases. But I found some interesting similarities between him and Hans Niemann. And one obvious similarity is that they both had very rapid and very impressive chess improvement. Now, they're doing it at different levels. Hans was doing it, going from 2450 to 2700 in a year and a half or 2 years or something. Michael de La Maza went from, we'll look at a rating graph here in just a second, but he was able to push from starting out at 1100 to over 2,000 in less than 3 years, I believe. Another similarity between Michael and Hans is that they're both very determined, very focused, and extremely hardworking. No matter what you think of Hans, it's hard to argue that he's not very hardworking and very focused and determined. Now, they're both very independent and confident. They're not afraid to challenge the currently accepted beliefs as for chess improvement, and they're not afraid to challenge the existing gurus. Another similarity is that they have very ambitious goals. They are both academically accomplished. They went to very rigorous, Hans preparatory school, but Michael, he went to MIT, and we'll touch on that later. Now, interestingly, another similarity is that for each of them, their goal is to beat their opponent. Their goal isn't to play perfect chess, it's to beat their opponent. And then I guess the thing that made me think all about the similarities between them is they were both accused of cheating in prestigious over-the-board tournaments, probably unfairly. But I won't, weigh in on that. But they've both been accused of cheating in over-the-board tournaments. In Michael's case, just allegations from the online, just online. So let's look at how fast each one of them improved their ratings. So this is the USCF chess rating graph for Michael de La Maza, and one thing to note is that he started this in his upper 20s, so you can see here he reached 2041. Now this is way back in 2001, and this rating where he jumped from upper 1900s to 2041, took place in the 2001 World Open in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But you can see it's very impressive. He started at 1163, shot up to 1400, plateaued there a little bit, and then was able to add, several hundred points in about a 2-year period of time to his rating. So that's like, he was about 30 years old when he played in this World Open here in 2001. So that's like extremely impressive for that kind of growth at that age. And we'll touch on that probably in later videos. But he kind of makes it a point in his book to point out the fact that all these so-called gurus say that this kind of improvement is impossible. Now Hans, this was less than 2 years ago. He was about 2450-ish, maybe higher than that. It's hard to see exactly on this graph, but he shot up in 2 years. It looks like he gained over 200 points because he now hit the 2700 mark in his live rating in the Sinkfield Cup. So that is extremely impressive because it's much harder to gain 200 rating points when you get up to this extremely high level than it is at the at the level that Michael de La Maza did it. But these are both like incredibly impressive rating gains and improvements. Now, they both have faced cheating accusations, and maybe I'll touch on that at the end, but everybody's probably familiar, with the Sinkfield Cup and Hans Niemann and the Magnus Carlsen insinuations, and then Michael de La Maza, he won the World Open in 2001, the under 2000 section, and he won $10,000 for doing it. But then there was online accusations, and I don't believe either one of them probably cheated in over the board. Certainly not de La Maza, and I doubt Hans cheated in any of these over the board, like the Sinkfield Cup or the World Open. And I think part of it is, when people see other people do what they think isn't supposed to be done with these rapid rating increases, it kind of invalidates their excuse. Right, there's this built-in excuse that adults, aren't supposed to be able to improve more than a certain amount, and I think what can happen is that their success kind of challenges these. I think these things are put out there. I don't know, like, it kind of challenges kind of their bad faith in the sense that, these limiting beliefs that improvement can't be that fast. And these guys have some unique characteristics which would kind of go to point that if anybody could do it, these are two individuals that could. And so I wanted to keep an open mind on it and just see if there's anything that an adult improver could learn from these two and their process, and just see how we could take something to improve our own chess, and not put these limiting beliefs that come down from the gurus up above. So anyway, that's a little long-winded, but I do think it's interesting. Now, another similarity or commonality between them is they have very ambitious goals. Now, Niemann, he makes it known that he wants to become the world champion, and he's very bold about saying that. And de La Maza, he had ambitious goals as an adult improver. He wanted to crack the 2000 level, and he wanted to increase his rating as fast as he could, very rapidly and very efficiently. And we'll touch on his background, but his background is in engineering, so it's not surprising that he would want to try to maximize the efficiency of the process in which he increases his chess rating. And I think for that fact alone, he's an interesting guy to look into to see what he did to do this. Now, they're both extremely determined, very focused, and very hardworking. I don't think anybody would doubt that Hans, is extremely hardworking. Apparently he studies chess almost 12 hours a day, kind of locks himself in his hotel room, doesn't go out and socialize, and he just chess is his thing. He wants to become the world champion, and he's willing to bust his ass to do it. Now, De La Maza, also an incredibly hard worker. He actually, in his book, there's a few different things, and I'm going to go through some of them in upcoming videos, and we're going to try to break down what he did to get better. But one component of it is he called it the 7 circles of hell. And basically he takes like a tactic set of 1,000 problems. He does them faster and faster and faster and faster until he gets to the 7th time, and he tries to do all 1,000 of them in a day. And basically that's the woodpecker method, basically spun out of his idea here. So it's not for the lazy. Let's just say that. And that's one of the criticisms of his book, is that, well, for a working adult, how can you possibly free up enough time and energy to do this? Well, I mean, he found the time to do it, and I'm just saying it takes a lot of focus and hard work to do that. So that's a big component of their improvement, is just they're not afraid to work their ass off. Now, interestingly, they're both academically accomplished, in the sense that they went to academically rigorous programs that are very difficult and selective and competitive. So Hans got, I believe I remember hearing that he said that he went on scholarship or something, but he went to Columbia Grammar and Prep School. So that's like a really prestigious, hard, difficult to get into one. And if he did it on merit, schools like that, I can't, I don't want to be careful what I say, but a lot of times very highly ranked, prestigious high schools, like preparatory schools, they have to take people like Hans that can, test out, blow the scores, out of the range on tests, so that they can keep their average test scores high to balance out the legacy students that they let in. They need the average thing to average out and get high. So it's probably safe to say that he's a very talented kid academically. And De La Maza, he went to MIT, and he did his undergrad there and his graduate training, and got a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science. So these guys, they're academically accomplished, and they can take on a rigorous program and succeed. Now, interestingly, they're both very pragmatic. So their goal is to beat their opponent, not to play perfect chess and to maybe impress some has-beens that are commentating, and trying to play, they're not trying to play the best engine move and get a, average cent upon loss of 10 and a, engine score of 99 or something. They just want to beat whoever they're playing. And they're playing different classes of players, right? So they have different approaches of how they do that. But as an example, in this recent game where Hans played Firouzja in Game 4 of the Sinkfield Cup, he had this move that was Queen to G3. And, all the analysts or whatever were ready to spring on him saying, if you would have done this, Firouzja could have accepted this material, and done this. And if you played all these computer lines, I mean, you were losing, Hans. You were losing. Well, Hans doesn't really care. I mean, his point was, well, the way he sees it, Firouzja's weakness is he doesn't like to be attacked. And he played that move instinctively, knowing that there is some form of attack that could come from that. And he didn't think that Firouzja would take the bull by the horns and grab the material. So he played that very pragmatically. He said it was a psychological move. Didn't have all the details worked out, but his goal is just to win that game, and whatever way he needs to do that to win that game, that's what he's willing to do. He's not like stuck in the ways. He doesn't have to try to conform to typical certain chess conventions and playing all the best moves and this and that. He just wants to win the freaking game. Now, De La Maza, that's basically the thrust of his book, is that for players, club players under 2,000, he contends it's not as hard as you think to win games. Basically, you don't lose games. And so a large focus of his book is on your board vision, your tactics, and a consistent, somewhat simplified thought process. Basically, you get out of your own way, you don't hang pieces. When other people do, you grab them. Now, another reason why potentially they could become, targets of cheating allegations and whatnot, they're both independent and very confident. So, Niemann, Hans, he lived alone in New York City at the age of 16 and he survived, right? He was self-coached for a period of time, a few years, I believe. I don't know that for sure, but I know at some point he was self-coached. So he's very independent. And Hans is not afraid to call out poor play by top players. In this tournament, I can't remember which player, he beat at that time, but after one of the games in the Sinkfield tournament, he said, "My opponents are playing terribly. What are they doing? I thought they're supposed to be top players." So, he's very confident. He's not afraid to challenge authority. I know I listened to a podcast on Ben Johnson's Perpetual Chess podcast where Greg Shahade was on there, and he mentioned how at these youth chess camps, not only was he probably the most talented student that he ever had come through there, but he would challenge, if he had an idea and he didn't agree with the instructor on some well-established thing, he would just keep arguing the point. He's very confident in himself and he's not afraid to challenge authority. And that's the same with De La Maza. So I'm going to kind of dive into his book, in an upcoming videos, because I want to dive into it and see what we can take as adult improvers. But he's not afraid to attack, the conventional ways of thinking when it comes to chess and authority figures and the gurus. So I just want to close this video with a few quotes from his book that some of them are pretty funny, but it kind of lets you see into his attitude. And I think this confidence thing there is something to that. Now, they both have reasons to be very confident. They're very accomplished individuals. But one of De La Maza's quotes here, "GM instruction is suboptimal at the club level." And so he really believes that, there's a better way to go about rapidly improving if you're a club player than trying to read all these training methods that in some way spun off from grandmasters. And we'll discuss why he thinks that in another video here, because I do think it is important to try to dig into why he believes that. But he strongly believes that. And then his view, he says, "My personal view is that anyone who can read and write fluently in a language and ride a bicycle can become an expert and probably a master." And so this is another thing that probably opens him up to being targeted and accused of cheating, is that it kind of diminishes the accomplishment of what some people see as their biggest accomplishment in life. And, I'm not going to weigh in on whether he's right or wrong here. I have no idea. But it certainly would open him up to scrutiny from others if they see it as an attack on their accomplishments and belittling them. Now, one of my favorite quotes in his book, actually, he's kind of hard on some of the established authorities in the chess world, and this one is pretty funny. He says, he's attacking Jeremy Silman here and reassess your chess, and I'm assuming it's one of the original versions before they were computer checked and whatnot, or heavily at least. He says, "Pick any analyzed position in Jeremy Silman's reassess your chess. Set up the position on your favorite computer and play the side that is winning according to Silman. After a few moves, the computer will deviate from Silman's analysis. Feel free to check Silman's book or any other source for advice on what to do about the computer's new idea." You will quickly learn that the computer has busted Silman's plan and a new plan is required. So he doesn't heavily buy into like learning all kinds of strategical nuances. I believe he thinks like a lot of these thought processes of working out and finding the best moves are just not practical for somebody below master level, and he's not afraid to like take these people on, and in the long-standing kind of beliefs of the chess gurus. So, and I do think that's interesting. I've heard of, people trying to use these like imbalances and all this stuff to derive at a move and actually like drop down in rating significantly. And I'm talking like at least one master level player that I know of that has done this, and just like quickly just started losing rating points because it was just too hard to do over the board. So, if this person couldn't do it, I sure as hell know I wouldn't be able to. Here's a funny quote he has, and this is in a section where he's talking about I'm assuming he's talking about Kotov's Think Like a Grandmaster, and it's this book where he talks about a thought process, and basically you're supposed to come up with instantly, miraculously see all the candidate moves, put them in your head, and then start analyzing all the candidate moves and then comparing them, right? And his take on this, he says, show me a class player who can follow Kotov's thinking technique and achieve success, and I'll show you a master masquerading as a potser. So I thought that's one of my favorite quotes I've seen in a chess book, actually. It's pretty damn funny. And then the last one that I will end on, he says, for a class player to study openings, middle game strategy, and end games as a way of increasing chess ability, as opposed to chess knowledge, is the equivalent of fixing a car that doesn't have an engine by polishing the steering wheel. The car looks better, but it still doesn't go. So, he's got a lot of like funny statements like this that are entertaining, but I do believe to some extent they are true. And so I want to like dig into it more and see if there are things that I can take from both of these players. Probably a lot more from de La Maza, and just see if I can incorporate them into my improvement path as an adult improver. I'm gonna do it like I'm gonna try to like carefully weigh it, not just like blindly go down this path where I just take everything as gospel and do it all. But I do think it's definitely worth looking at, and that just because they were accused of cheating, and not necessarily fairly accused of cheating, I really don't think there's any chance de La Maza did. Just because they had these accusations doesn't mean we can't learn a lot from their improvement. Because the fact of the matter is Hans has had, regardless of how much he cheated online at through chess.com or whatever, it's hard to make a good faith argument that he hasn't shown tremendous progress. I mean, I know MVL came to the bat for him, and basically I guess he had a informal blitz match with him in Paris when there was all kinds of strong players watching, and he basically took him into overtime into an Armageddon game, and MVL he's like the reigning world champion in blitz. And so regardless of all the drama and whatever, the guy has, this is an incredible accomplishment what he's done. And de La Maza as well. De La Maza, like one of the criticisms, and I think one of the things that caused people to question him after the fact, of course, that he cheated, is, well, could he keep doing this? Because what happened is he stopped playing over the board chess. I'll put a link. Dan Heisman talks about it on this like thread on chess.com. I'll try to find that and put that link in the show notes. But his goal basically was to get to 2,000, and he said, I'd have to work too hard now. The gains would be difficult at this point to make the gains, and he didn't value that. And so instead he went on to develop, be a co-founder of a company that sold off to Oracle. I think it was Oracle ended up buying it out. So, he thought, well, instead of going from 2,000 to 2,200 and trying to make a run at it, well, I'm going to become a millionaire, and now he's like a venture capitalist, I believe, angel investor, whatnot. So I don't think the fact that he quit playing after he hit 2,000 in any way diminishes his accomplishment. It just basically shines a light on what his priorities are, and he ended up being very successful. So I don't think it's a stretch to believe that, you know, all these methods worked for him. Now that doesn't mean they'll work for other people. I mean, what I want to know is, like, I would never expect to get progress like he did, right? I mean, he's got a lot of tremendous qualities that lend themselves to chess improvement. I mean, he's obviously tremendously gifted. His brain works quite well, I'm sure, but he also has a lot of drive and discipline and determination and just confidence. And most people are not gonna measure up to him in all of those different things. And so I think it would be hard to expect to match his improvement, even though he kind of diminishes what he believes are the qualities necessary to reach the expert level. But anyway, I'm going to start digging into this more, and I'm going to make some videos on this and see if any of it is worth incorporating into my plan as I try to make a push to get better at chess here. I hope you found something useful, and take care.